Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Rocky Lalvani. Rocky was shocked to learn most business owners do not look at their financial reports. He found that it has to do with our mindsets around money and also fear and shame. When he realized how much of a problem this was, he knew this was his purpose to help business owners be profitable. Rocky serves as a Chief Profitability Officer for business owners. He teaches them how to ensure they get paid and they make a profit a priority. As a certified profit first professional, he changes the accounting formula of sales minus expenses equal profit to sales minus profit equals expenses. This ensures profit comes first. And as Rocky teaches, it is not about money at all costs. People come before money. Rocky started with nothing when his parents immigrated to the United States when he was 2 years old, and his parents were in their mid-40s. It was his parents' second time starting over in life, as they had moved here to experience the American dream. In spite of a lot of struggles and his mom passing away when Rocky was 7, he has been able to achieve financial and life success. Rocky loves to share his journey and inspire others to achieve their dream even faster. In today's episode, Rocky and I will be having a conversation on money, knowing your purpose, personal development, masterminds, morning routines, harmony, not balance, and raising financially savvy kids. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Rocky. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you, Dwight. Are we going to actually get to all of that? That might be like 6 episodes.
Well, that's exactly it. When I was going through it, and as I mentioned prior to us starting the recording, there's so many interesting things I want to ask you. And if we don't get through them, I'm hoping that, you'll enjoy the conversation and I'll be able to get you back on.
Absolutely.
So yes, we're going to try. I staggered it somewhat so that, I'm going to get through the most important ones, and how, depending on how our flow goes, I'll skip and go around stuff, right? So it'll hopefully the listeners that are listening right now are going to enjoy what we're going to discuss. So I like to start off with, I'm a big fan of Marvel and DC. And, when you look at how they always talk about, they start something with it when it comes to the superhero genre, and then they talk about, all of a sudden they come out with an episode that's the origin of how all this happened. And so for me, that's kind of important. So tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you are at currently.
So as you mentioned, I was an immigrant to the United States. When my parents came here, we essentially lived on the wrong side of the tracks. And they also had a community that had also migrated around the same time. And they would get together and they would talk about how to live in America, how to create success. And they would also talk a lot about money. And what I noticed is very quickly, everyone was moving up the economic ladder. So while they started off at the bottom, they very quickly started to achieve life success. And that was for the kids. The expectation was that all of us would succeed. I never realized that most people didn't talk about money in their families. And so in our family, we did. And so it was just much more natural. And somewhere along the way as a kid, I just had this desire to be a millionaire. I mean, that was my goal. I don't know where it came from. And so I kind of just started to learn more about money, more about investing. And I was a spreadsheet geek. So I would run the spreadsheets, how much do I have to save? How much does it have to grow? How long will it take me? And how do I go about doing this? And then I just went out and started implementing. And little by little, it came about. And just keep showing up and doing the work.
So you're a spreadsheet geek. Or
I
nerd.
am.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends like that. I like spreadsheets too. Come from the former IT community and educating and working with business clients and stuff. I had to learn how to use Excel. I'm certainly not as proficient as many, but yeah, I like spreadsheets too. I like keeping it simple though. With some people get their spreadsheets pretty complicated. So yeah, that's interesting. So when you talk about people's mindset about money and being ashamed, what has been your experience in this regards, and how much of this has to do with the fact people are not taught the ins and outs of handling money from their parents and of course the education system?
So I think it's a multitude of things. Number one, we all have mindsets and thought patterns, right? Our brain does this to conserve energy and to make things simple. And what I mean by that is if your audience can ask themselves the question of money is, and it will provide an interesting answer. For a lot of people, as they were growing up, their parents may have said, money doesn't grow on trees. That's expensive. We can't afford that. Rich people are evil. God will provide. All of those are money mindsets, right? They drive your financial behaviors. And if you don't understand them and you don't adapt them to serve you the best, you will find yourself in trouble. So somebody who thinks that rich people are evil is going to get rid of any money they have because they don't want to become rich and evil. That's why you notice that people who win lottery tickets or people who get large inheritance, usually within 2 years are back where they started because they've never changed their money mindsets and habits and adjusted them. And a lot of people do have shame and fear around money because we unfortunately tie our self-worth to our net worth, and that's not necessarily true. So if you look at occupations, if you think of somebody who's a lawyer or a doctor, you think they're rich. By the way, most of them are broke. But we have all these emotions around it, and we really need to take the time to sort through it and figure it out. And the other thing is we're not taught money. We're not taught how to build wealth. We're not shown. And so I think that's where the other area that people struggle. And then everyone spends whatever they have. So it's lifestyle inflation. The more you make, the more you spend. And until you do something about that, you will constantly be on that hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, back to a couple of comments. Most people are broke. In my experience of 18 years in finance, most people live a life of more month than money, and they're not taught wealth principles. You're completely accurate and correct about that. They're not taught about simple things like understanding inflows of money. I have $1 come in, yet I'm spending $1.20, and then they all of a sudden realize that they want to live in with their head in the clouds, right? Then they survive off credit cards, lines of credit, and the list goes on. So I think a lot of times though, our learned behavior from our parents, watching how our parents live life, or the lack of them sharing how they live life is the biggest problem in my experience. Do you feel that, a lot of our responsibility as parents is to ensure that we instill the truth in our kids, to tell them like, listen, it's $1.20 to live this month. I'm only bringing in $1. Sorry, we can't do this. Yet they continually get themselves in debt to try to please everybody.
And yeah, parents do have to have those conversations. And number one, the parents shouldn't be spending $1.20 if they're only bringing in $1, right? You have to live within your means. We've always had conversations around money with our kids from the time they were young. And one of the things we did was we gave them allowance, and we gave them an allowance on purpose. I know some people believe in it, don't believe in it. We did it because I wanted my kids to learn how to use money. And you can't learn how to use money if you don't have money in your hands. And I wanted to take all the emotions out of putting money in their hands. But one of the things we did, because we gave them an allowance, then we stopped buying them stuff like candy and this and that. We're like, you have your own money, you can buy your own candy. And it's amazing how quickly kids will make different choices when they're spending their money versus your money.
Oh, incredibly true. You and I had a conversation. I'm going to jump forward to talking about, rich, savvy kids, or not rich, savvy, but financially savvy kids, pardon me. And you and I talked about it when you interviewed me for your podcast. We talked specifically about holidays. I don't know if you remember that conversation, and when they were young, and how the fact that your kids, you taught your kids to get past the need to want cheap trinkets on their adventures together as a family. And can you explain, since we're at that and that came up, how did you get past that? What did you teach your kids so that they would not want those cheap trinkets and instead of and get valuable memories instead?
Well, so part of that was they had their own money. Like, I'm not buying you stuff. If you want to buy this stuff, go ahead and buy it. And so you always have, so the problem most people have is everyone looks at a buying decision of buy this, feel unhappy, right? You got to put something else into the equation. So buy this, or I have the ability to do something else with the money. And now you have to weigh those something else's against that immediate decision. So one of the things we showed our kids to do was they got enamored by the penny machines. So you put 51 cents in there, they get to do something, they get to pick it. So they get a trinket for 51 cents, which is probably 10 cents on the dollar, maybe 2 cents on the dollar of what all the junk in the store usually costs. It's small, it's easy to carry, so we're not cluttering up everything. And if they wanted something bigger, it was up to them to buy it. So they realized, hey, Dad'll give me 51 cents here versus me taking money out of my wallet to buy something. And so they learned to be a little bit more savvier with that. With regards to the holidays, we would tell our kids, like, especially as they became a little older, you have a choice. If you want to go buy stuff now, you can go buy these toys now. But if you wait a couple days after Christmas, all this stuff is going to go 75% off. You can spend the same amount of money and get 4 times as much. Your call. And they would learn to wait a week or two because they saw the value of waiting. We taught them delayed gratification.
And that's fantastic. And many parents need to realize that. And, thinking about the fact of how things drop in price the day after any holiday, Easter, even Halloween. I'll use
Halloween candy. Halloween candy is going on sale in 3 days for 75% off.
Yeah. And I look at the fact that for years, I go the day after Halloween's over and I buy not candy, but I buy decorations and stuff. And I've been doing that for years. And you can buy something like a scary ghouly, guy missing his head that I bought last year was $330. And I paid, it was 70% off the next day. So I learned to have delayed gratification, knowing I could buy something really cheap that I was going to use a year later. And other people I want it now. So they're willing to put that on their credit card or whatever when they can't afford it. Back to that $1.20 scenario. Too many people want instant gratification, and you hit the nail on the head. Delayed gratification. It's like I also bring up to people buying a vehicle. People want the new this, new that, be the first person sitting behind the wheel. They drive off the parking lot of the dealership, 30% lost. I understood the power of delayed gratification and learned that from my father. He'd always buy vehicles that were a year old or sometimes older. They could even be new on the dealership, but the dealership didn't care because they wanted to get rid of their inventory. He didn't like sticker shock. And I learned the same value, delayed gratification. It's tough to teach the kids. I don't know how well or how quick your kids learned, Some of my kids get it, some of them still don't.
And that's why we put money in their hands, because they started to viscerally see how these things worked. And we would have conversations then like, hey, we're at this store. It's this much money here. If you wait till we go to that store, it's cheaper at that store. And by the way, if you order it on eBay and you really wait, you can get it for a fraction of the cost. And we did that. Like my son was into, I think, Pokemon cards. So, depending on where you go for Pokemon cards, they cost different amounts. Depending on the size of the package you buy, they end up with different amounts. But you could go on eBay and for not a lot of money, you could get 150 of them. But you'd have to wait 2 weeks for their shipper to ship them to you. And so having those conversations and letting them see that really helped them, even as 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, to get it.
Yeah, and it does. It makes sense. You're teaching them. You're not just teaching the skill of getting more Pokemon cards. So you are, but you're teaching them a valuable life lesson that they can take into being an adult, being in their own business, or even it helps them even be a better an employee. If they're not business people and they decide they're going to be in a career working for others, there's nothing wrong with that. But if they understand delayed gratification, they may be willing to give advice within the job or career they're working at that can help that business they're working for, or other staff they work with, or maybe they're a boss of others. I think it's a hugely valuable lesson to teach people delayed gratification and time value of money. Wait a little bit of time, get more value, right? Amazing message. So, the next thing I want to ask you is, on your journey, how many critics have you had on the road to being an entrepreneur? And if so, how did you deal with your critics?
I don't know that I necessarily had a ton of critics other than myself, right? We are our own worst enemy. Yeah. I think for me, that was probably the biggest one. Outside of me, I don't think there were a ton, but part of that was I wasn't hanging around in a circle of people or telling them what was going on. I just did my own thing because I don't care what they say. And so I think I was somewhat insulated in that. For me, it was myself, like me not getting it, me being worried about it, me not having enough confidence. And that just comes by showing up, doing the work, taking the next step.
Yeah, and that sounds fair. We are our own worst critic. And that's basically the point I wanted to get across is, if we can shut down caring about what the committee of day or society wants, even then we still have the person we look at in the mirror to deal with. And we are our own best and worst fan, right? Critic, whatever you want to call it. So I appreciate that. So when you say knowing your purpose, I've gone through some of your stuff. You talk about when you say knowing your purpose, how did you find your purpose, and how has that helped those you coach find theirs?
So I think that's a journey. It's a time thing. It's taking the time and creating the space to ask yourself, what do you want in life and why? And what's important to you? And then figuring that all out. And I think a lot of times people think of purpose as this big thing, I'm going to change 1 million lives or any of that. I think that becomes, that's fine if you want to do it, but it doesn't need to be that big thing. For most people, it's just getting clarity, saying, for me, I want to be a great dad. I want to be a good husband. I want to help people with money. And so they're all things that I enjoy doing. But once you know that, then you have to start asking yourself, well, what am I doing today? Is it in alignment with what I said I wanted? And what you'll find a lot of times is people will say, I want XYZ, but you look at their calendar and they're spending all their time on ABC because they're not actually following their purpose. So I usually recommend a book for a lot of people. It's called Living Forward. It's by Michael Hyatt. And that book kind of helps you to create a life plan. And it takes you through the whole format of how to do it, explains why. And the people who do that, they tend to have a lot more clarity on what it is that they want from life and how they want to live it. And then it takes little steps to get from where you are today to the life you want to live tomorrow.
One of the things, and I appreciate that, passion, you know, how is passion tied into your purpose though? Because you did mention passion.
So there is this whole thing, follow your passion, right? You can follow your passion if you're wealthy. If you're not wealthy, you've got to figure out what is it that you like to do, that you're good at, that the world wants and is willing to pay for. When you can find that intersection of those four things, then that kind of allows you to live the life you choose and also have money. But if you don't need the money, then you can just go do whatever you want.
That's true. It also goes back to the fact, you know, I think our education system is failing people continually, my whole life and even prior, that they don't really teach people, you know, when they sit down and say, what do you want to do and go to school? Do you have a passion? You know, maybe we can take this passion and help it so that it can be your purpose in life. So you can, you know, take care of yourself and have a family. They seem to have failed on so many aspects of educating our children. So when they sit down and all of a sudden you're in like grade 11 and they are going to sit down with your counselor and they're going to help you figure out what to go to school, I have found that it's like a lot of people that go to a restaurant and they don't start on the left side of the menu, they start on the right, and they buy based on cost. I think a lot of times people aren't counseled properly when they're young and in high school, figuring out what they want to do for their life, to actually look at that passion and that purpose. They're looking at, what am I going to make? And I heard that from some of my own kids, right? You know, well, I want to do this. Okay, why do you want to do it? Well, it pays this. Well, what do you know about it? And the response I'd get from them, and it's not even just my kids, from others, when I talk to them about, you know, I talk to younger people and I do coaching even for people that are, you know, in their late teens and early 20s. They don't have a clue because they've been so fixated on the end result of money that they forgot about the passion and the purpose. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I think a lot of them, like, they've never been given a framework to think through it, nor have they seen the reality of what those choices are. They've never even been exposed. So they don't have a framework. They don't have a knowledge base. They don't have a reference point. If they haven't been shown those opportunities, then I think they're really going to struggle. So someone may say, I want to go be a doctor because it's going to make me wealthy. Have you ever spent time with a doctor? Have you asked them what their life is like? Do you realize what they have to do and what they deal with all day? And I think the more they understand what they have to do, the more they may realize, I don't really want to be a doctor. I thought what they wanted was the prestige or the money or something else, but they didn't realize that there's a cost with that. And what's the cost? And then the other question is, does it fit your natural skills? Do you have the natural skills to be a doctor or don't you? Because if you don't, you're chasing the wrong dream. And that's why most kids usually, you know, after the first year of college are giving up pre-med because they couldn't get through chem and biology. And so, you know, now they're lost. They don't know what to do, and they're making decisions without a framework.
Well, and yeah, the framework, I love that. The framework has gotten to the point though. So when they do I know some of the schools, when you go to apply for them, they make you do like an application, in a sense of, you have to do a paper, like so many words and exactly why you want to get into this career, what's it gonna, what's your passion for it? But really, it's all mechanical. It's not really tying into the fact, like you mentioned, are they suited for it? Do they have the personality for it? Do they have the drive for it? If their whole childhood has been where they've been lazy and not driven, and they decide they want to be a doctor, there's just no connection there. And our school systems wonder why 65 to as high as 80% of people that come out of university and college don't even stay in that career or even start in that career, because they come out and they find that it really wasn't what they wanted. And some of them decide after the second year, first year, sometimes they didn't even want to do it, but they feel pressure from their family to finish it. Then they come out of school, they don't even do that field, and they have a huge student loans. There's such a disconnection with the support structure. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I've been trying for 18 years how to get within the school systems to communicate with them so we can sit down, goal set with people, young people, and teach them how to live life on purpose. They just don't get it. And in order to live life on purpose, you have to have that right passion. And if you're a lazy kid and we can get you to do your homework, what makes you think you're going to be a doctor? It may sound harsh, but sometimes we have to, as adults, sit down with young minds and give them a polite slap upside the head that, sorry, your aspirations of wanting to be a surgeon aren't good when you can't even do the minute details of just living normal life through school, right? So, yeah, I appreciate what you have to say about that. You personally deal with lots of clients. Can you tell me some of the lessons you've learned from dealing with clients and how it has impacted how you live your life and continue to serve others?
Lessons learned from, no one's asked me that. I don't have a standard answer for you.
That's fine.
I think that the biggest thing, so let me tell you some of the biggest surprises. People don't take action, right? That's the biggest thing I've noticed. Most people will hit one friction point and give up. And so having somebody to stand next to you and help you through friction points is important. So I always tie this back to the gym. If you've got a trainer, you are more apt to show up and go further and faster than if you don't have somebody helping you, right? And that's one of the things that a good coach does, is help you push through your limits and your challenges, and helps you see opportunities when you are stuck inside of yourself. And so it's also giving people the space to be able to do that as well. So that's a big part of it. Most people don't take time to think. They don't actually, when we talk about it in the business world, we talk about most people are working in their business, not on their business. They're not thinking about the bigger picture. The same thing happens in life. People aren't thinking about the bigger picture of life. And so a lot of times, especially in the first session, I see massive incongruency. I want this, but here I am over here. I'm like, that's like oil and water. How are you going to make those two things even come together? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Go show me how it's possible.
So, bottom line, people need mentorship and coaching, collapse time frames,
accountability.
Yeah, and I wrote that down. As you notice, I write notes down because then I review it after the fact, because I learned something from, as I'm interviewing people, obviously. There's always value and nuggets of information if you're open-minded. And I wrote down accountability. See, so many people are confused about accountability. They think when, you say to somebody, I want you to hold me accountable. It's not them holding you accountable. You're holding yourself accountable. They're just reminding you to hold yourself accountable. Right. And maybe I'm confused, but that's how I look at it. When I know years and years ago, when I started getting into the business space with my own businesses, and people would say, well, we're going to help you be accountable. Okay, well, let's explain that. You're going to help me by reminding me that I said I was going to do this. So now I got to force myself to still be accountable. Nobody can force you to be accountable. You have to be accountable to yourself. All they can do is mentor. And if you stay connected to a coach or a mentor, they're going to constantly be that little birdie chirping in your ear and reminding you what your aspirations or goals are. And they're going to also correct you, saying, you know what, that's based on getting to know you, that's just improbable. So, you talk about the fact that when you're coaching people in oil and water, I can imagine it continually helps you so that the next time you've heard that story or you've already coached somebody in similar circumstances, because really there's only so many patterns of behavior that we have to deal with, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, there are so many patterns, but then there's all the little nuances, and that's where it gets interesting,
True.
in all the little nuances and figuring it out and helping people to see their path forward and just changing the way that they look at things and that they look at the world. If you can help them flip the switch, then they're much more willing to show up and do the work, right? Then they see the results and they're willing to take the time, put the effort in.
So with all the years of you coaching people, you've understood how to adapt and understand the nuances that much quicker, though. Wouldn't you say that'd be fair?
Yeah, I mean, so when I do the business coaching on the financial side, it's very easy for me to understand and to look at the numbers and to point things out and to say, let's figure out different ways. Finding the new way depends on the person. Some go quick, some just drag on and on. So I can't say that I'm not a master at getting them to always do what they should.
To push the right buttons.
To
Yeah.
push the right button, but we keep trying and I keep showing up, and it's a question of whether they keep showing up. Some people don't. And usually, it's funny, as I look back at the people who don't, the flags were there before I started. And I should have already known that they probably wouldn't have.
Yeah. I guess in my own career of doing finance now for 18 years, prior to getting into finance, was an IT consultant, had a firm, and I always thought I was okay at human nature, understanding people's nuances and stuff. And I realized that for the rest of my life, I'm going to always be studying how people react and their tonality and communication skills so that I can get the best version of them. And so you're right. One day I might think I have it nailed, and then I get another client and I'm using specific things that I've learned, and I'm not getting the same result I thought I'd get, because you're right. Everybody's got it. So you did. Thank you. You answered it perfectly. There is so many little nuances that we learn certain things, maybe getting better at presenting or listening. So skills ourselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to push the same buttons and get the same response because everybody's just like their fingerprint, right? So different. So yes, great response. So I know you definitely believe in personal development, as we have discussed our favorite books in prior conversations and things we do to constantly level up. Can you share what do you consistently do to personally grow, and what processes can you recommend to listeners on their journey of living a life on purpose?
So I think the easiest and the simplest things are, number one, books, right? They're not very expensive. There's a ton of knowledge in them. People spend 3 years to write a book. They put time and effort into it. And everyone can get books. You can get them from the library if you don't have money, right? So that's the lowest, easiest way to learn about how to up your game. Now with podcasts, I think that's another easy way to meet people, to learn, to get expert advice from top level people. You have the ability to get that kind of knowledge. Then next level up is probably courses. And I'm not talking about school and college. I'm talking about buying courses from experts who teach you their particular path. So that's another way. Then you go to coaches and mastermind groups. So mastermind groups are constantly holding you accountable, pushing you up, giving you a variety of opinions, helping you move forward quickly. And then you go to coaching, which is one-on-one, where you're getting direct, constant feedback. So you've got to figure out where you are, what you want to achieve, what you need in your particular life at this moment, because it changes. And then you've got to find those groups. So I've had one-on-one coaching with the coach. Right now, I think I'm in 3 mastermind or 4 mastermind groups. Each one is specific to different kinds of things. I read anywhere between 2 to 7 books a month. I used to listen to a lot more podcasts, but COVID and not having drive time changed that. So I listen to less than I used to, but I'm just constantly learning and leveling up. So you're never done.
Well, absolutely not. The biggest thing that I love about that is that you're constantly striving to not be in that camping mode. I talk to people about this all the time. You know, in life, you constantly strive to want to grow and change. And once you think you've arrived, you've actually got into a camping position and you stop climbing. So, you know, I love what you had to say, because you're constantly trying to climb and change, you know, change yourself. Because if we don't learn to change, it's easy. If I stopped today doing all the podcasts, listening to books, being in part of the masterminds, it wouldn't take long for me to spiral down the rabbit hole. I don't know if you agree, but so many people think that, you know, oh, I've read 50 books. What do I need to read anymore for? And I fell into that trap at one time. When I was raising my kids, I wasn't necessarily listening and feeding myself the information I had. And I was wondering why some days I felt so down. Well, my mental mindset wasn't getting fed the fuel that it needed to level up. I was camping and I was stuck. So yeah, I appreciate your answer. That is great. One of the things you mentioned, though, is you talked about experts getting programs or hiring an expert. One of the biggest problems I see is that all these people hanging their shingles saying that they're experts at different things, and really they're not. They're selling a program. You go to these conferences, they stand on stage, and it costs you like $100 maybe to go. But then the back table, they got a $5,000 course, and oh, we'll break it out over 5 different credit card payments and this and that. Do you have any advice on how people can actually narrow down whether a person's actually an expert, what they should look for?
So it's hard to tell, right? Because the problem is most experts are bad at marketing and most marketers are not experts. And so it's a very fine balance between those two things. So it's all about time versus money, right? The reason to buy a course is someone has taken the time to find all the best information and bring it to you. But I think in today's world, high value courses, I don't think for the most part are bringing the value that they used to, because so much information is now available for free. But you've got to dig through it and determine what's right and what's wrong and what's true. And that takes time. Some things are easier to take a course on and some things are more difficult. And then the other thing is, just because it worked for someone doesn't mean that it still works and that it will work for you. And that's the other part of the problem, right? It may have worked for them and it may have worked 5 years ago, but the world changed and that may not be relevant information anymore. So that's kind of the other struggle. I'll be honest, I'm building a course. Everything that's in that course you can learn somewhere else. You know, it's just the advantage of it all being brought together. And then the other advantage, what you really want is if you can get a course that includes support, because it's the office hours calls, it's the communication with the person who's doing the work and teaching the work that helps you get through this points where you're stuck. And the reality is, the other problem is 95% of courses don't even get completed. So you have to know yourself, are you actually going to do the work? So you got to commit to doing the work.
Yeah, and some of the points you brought up, people don't, when it comes to courses and that, there's a lot of issues with the course content could be good, but if it's an audio, let's say it's an audio course or it's video with audio, people don't resonate necessarily with that person. Meanwhile, they've already spent the money, and they don't complete it because they don't resonate with sometimes information. But a lot of times I find I've applied and taken stuff in all different variety of courses in the last 30 some years, and I just don't resonate with the person. And it doesn't even necessarily mean it's a course where it's virtual or on the computer. I can be in a classroom. When I was going through college for electronics engineering, and I was just like, didn't resonate with that person. And then guess what? My marks suffered, my attendance suffered, my attention span suffered, right? So, you brought up a valid point though. So you're putting together a course that other people can find that information in so many different avenues, but your course might be more successful than those other avenues because you're Rocky and people resonate with you and your compassion and your caring. And so selling a course is so much more than just the content. It's the person, is what you're saying, right? And at least that's what I get and then interpret it, right? And that's one of the reasons I wanted you on my show. I resonate with you. I think you're amazing. So that's just my opinion, right? So, but opinions are just, we got to, again, back to how do you find an expert? Talk to people you trust. Hopefully you have a tribe or a team or a group of people that you can resonate with that will give you good advice. And if you're listening to this and you want to get into a course or a program, don't hesitate to say to somebody that's in your circle, say, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. Would you mind listening to this little snippet of this person or listening to their podcast? Or, just give me, don't be afraid to get somebody else's opinion. Even though that opinion may be free, it can help you make a better, educated decision by including people in. And sometimes people are embarrassed, so they just go and do it. Next thing you know, they've spent thousands of dollars on something they're never going to accomplish. And then it stops them from continuing to proceed forward in life. They become stagnant and they're on that hamster wheel that we spoke of, right? So I liked you talking about the masterminds, though. That was one of my other questions. And I like how everything's tying in together. I belong to quite a few masterminds too. And for those listening, Rocky brought up the fact that each mastermind has its own specific purpose. And I belong to masterminds for podcasting. I belong to masterminds for speaking, authors, coaches. I belong to masterminds on entrepreneurship, and the list goes on. My thing though is don't belong to too many. We spread yourself too thin. Maybe Rocky, maybe you agree. You're nodding your head. Too many people.
It is a time balance type of thing, and you need to be more intentional. And me, I'm still working out those balances, but I'm okay with it.
Myself too. So I know you have a morning routine, as do many successful people. What exactly is yours, and how has it helped you live in harmony? As I know you, like many, do not believe that a balanced life is realistic.
So my morning routine, the moment I wake up, I usually just start with gratitude, just thankful for all that I have. I have a comfy bed. It's a climate controlled room, right? I'm awake. I don't have any aches and pains. And then usually I will, and I don't read, I listen to Bible verses and so forth every morning. I have a set program. And so that kind of at least, gives you off with a thought of the day and so forth. And then usually once I roll out of bed, I am on my way to the gym, or 3 days a week I go to the gym, 2 days a week I exercise at home. So I pretty much roll out of bed and the first thing I do is go work out. And then after the workout is the shower, which is a long process. We have a beautiful shower and I take my time and that's thinking time. Showers are great thinking places, right? Great ideas come up in there. And then after that, I have some things that I read every morning. Some of it is Stoic, some of it is religious types of things. And then I also try to just stop and do some meditation, depending on the day and what the schedule looks like. And that varies from day to day. And it's just kind of to me, meditation is just slowing down and stopping. It's no secret, no, whatever. It's just taking the time to settle in and get out of the rush and quiet your mind. And then from there, I go off and I start doing my day. And I don't eat breakfast. I do intermittent fasting, so I will never eat before lunch. But I do love my coffee.
I agree. I intermittent fast as well, and love my coffee. That's probably, people say, what addictions do you have? Coffee. Right. Right. And I have to sometimes balance it. So before we started this and we got on and started doing the podcast, I made myself some herbal tea because sometimes you get a little jittery from the caffeine. Right. But yeah, so your morning routine is very structured and specific. I have a morning routine as well. So that helps you live in harmony by starting out the same way every day. Have you had opportunity though, where your day doesn't start out that harmony based way? And how does it affect you?
If I'm behind on the schedule, then the whole day just seems to go behind and you feel like you got nothing done. And everything just seems off on that day. And that's kind of the problem. That doesn't happen very often. It's usually that's caused by being up too late the night before.
Makes sense.
And so you end up being tired in the morning and that sets off your whole thing. So the perfect morning starts with the perfect evening and getting yourself appropriate amounts of sleep and making sure that gets handled. For me, harmony is about the fact that there are different parts of life. There are different, at different times, different things become important. And when I use the word balance, everyone thinks it means that everything has to be equal, and it will never be equal. And harmony is more like a song, at different parts of the song, different parts take over, but all the parts are still playing. And you've got to figure out for you what's important to you. How do you balance work, kids, your recreation, all the things you have to get done? How do you do that in a way that works for you? Too often a lot of people are stuck on the work side and they forget all the rest of life, and you can see it in the way their lives turn out. So it's finding how do you get all these things to work together in an appropriate way for you, not based on someone else's desires, but your desires.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it's, routine for me. I resonate with what you said. If you stay up too late and the next day I'm off, right? And I've woken up, I do some of the things you talked about. I get up and I have gratitude. The first thing I do is I thank God for being alive, giving me another shot, an opportunity. I have gratitude for my surroundings and stuff like that. I know the odd day though, I forget to welcome God into my day just because I'm so, I wake up in the wrong frame of mind. I get up and I'm rushed. It's because I've stayed up too late. And then I wake up and I'm tired and I feel kind of off. Later on in the day, I feel like I'm in a funk. And I realize, oh my gosh, my routine. I forgot to welcome God into my day. My brain knew it. I forgot it, but my subconscious mind knew that I wasn't doing my routine and I did feel off. So it's valuable for the listeners to understand that, it may not happen often, like you say, but when it does happen, you can feel it. I feel it in my soul. And lastly, talking about soul, you have a couple podcasts, right? And I had the honor of being on Richer Soul recently and have a couple questions about specifically Richer Soul. Your mantra is living a life on purpose, which I resonate with for sure. As I've been saying, live life on purpose, not by accident for the last, most of my 18 years of my financial career. Can you explain exactly though what the tag live in harmony across health, wealth, time, relationships, and spirituality means to you and how you came up with that?
So, yeah, I use the analogy, you can have a Ferrari, but if your Ferrari has a flat tire, where are you going? Nowhere, right?
Exactly.
And so life is not much different. So, what are the major parts of life? If you don't have your health, nothing else matters. So, clearly, we have to have our health. The reality is, life needs money, right? Some form or so forth. You've got to get that money piece down and right because it gives you the freedom to do what you want. You can start making decisions based on your values, not your bank balance. And everyone's got a different number. So this is not like you have to be a billionaire. Figure out what's comfortable for you. Everyone's got their own number and their own level of what they need. Health. So the other thing is relationships, right? Living alone or losing you screw it up with your wife and she takes off with all your money and your kids. Like, if you're not there for your kids, then what are you doing all this for? Right. And so you've got to kind of manage that. And then time is our most precious asset. Like once it goes by, you can't buy it back. And yet we tend to not value it. And so putting in the systems and processes to value your time to get the most done out of everyone has the same week. Some people get a lot more done in their week than other people do because they've mastered their time. And then the last thing is the spirituality, right? We are all connected to this universe. What is that for you? And how does that flow into the rest of your life? And how do all these pieces fit together in their own unique way for you? Stop picking up somebody else's life plan and trying to live their life because it's not yours. It's figuring out your unique life puzzle, building this plan around these major core tenets of life, and then just painting essentially your picture of what you want and then go live it.
It's a constant evolution.
It
Right?
is.
Like you said, people are trying to live other people's lives, and parents are sometimes the worst for that, trying to live vicariously through their children
Mhm.
for things that they couldn't achieve. So they'll push them to do extracurricular things that they wanted to do or a career. I've run into so many adults and even younger people as well that don't know how to tell their parents, sorry, I don't want to do that, because they feel extreme pressure and they don't live in harmony across all those things because their own parents never figured it out. So it becomes a learned behavior and they're stuck in a rut. And it goes back to the fact that they need coaching, which hopefully we wish it would start in school, but it doesn't. And then we wonder why we have a society of people go to work, go home, get paid, and stuck on a hamster wheel forever. Right. And that's why I think, back to you talked about podcasts and books and stuff. There's so much knowledge out there. There's so much ability for people to change. But, the 6 inches between their ears has been so programmed by their learned behavior that they can't escape it. And they're stuck on that hamster wheel. And that's why my mission is to live, help people live life on purpose, not by accident. And yours is, helping people, living a life on purpose, and as well as your mantra of harmony across health, wealth, time, relationships, and spirituality. Our society needs more people, and I'm not tooting our horns, but they need more people like us. They need more people because you know what? I wasn't always there. I was broken. I've been a broken person. I've picked myself up. I've had to the biggest thing is admitting to yourself that you're being at that point in time of your life a screw up. And what are you going to do to change it? And, self-realization isn't really something that people know either. So all I do and can do is continue to, speak to people. And podcasting, why have I started doing this? Probably similar to you, to share our message, to help and serve others, because, my God, our God, right? Or whatever people are, for those that don't believe in God, that's fine. You weren't put on this planet to be average and ordinary. You were put on this planet to be great, to serve others and make a difference. So, reach out to Rocky or myself. We can help, right? And if we can't help you specifically where you're at, we'll help others. We'll help you find others that can possibly do it, refer you, right? So never believe, if you're listening to the and hearing the sound of my voice, never believe that you're not worthy. So Rocky, time's almost up, but what I'd like to ask though is, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
So for me, the foundation is always financial. That's where I start. That's my entry point to people. So it doesn't matter whether you're a business owner or an employee. And I'm sure in Canada, you've got savings plans. Just start saving 1% a month. That's it. Just have it automated. So find a way to have somebody take money out of your bank account or paycheck. Or if you're in a company, we tell people to set up a profit account and just put 1% of revenue in the account. And so everyone should just save 1%. And 3 months from now, add another percent. And 3 months from them, add another percent. And little by little, just keep adding those baby steps. You'll never miss $1 out of 100. And if over time you keep doing that, over 5-10 years, you will get to a very high savings rate. And once you get to the high savings rate, you're no longer at $1.20 spending at $1. You're at 80 cents spending at $1. Your debts are paid off. You've got peace, and you've got the financial foundation to choose your life.
Great message. Well, obviously, me being in finance, I teach people you have two different types of people, A or B. A will spend, and, have more month than money. B will decide to save that 1%, like you're talking about, or maybe they save 10%, and then they learn to live on the 90% remaining. So I'll use the 10-90 rule. So I'll tell clients, what, and you're making it even easier. So I'll have to interject that as well. I can, with certain clients, that can't figure out 10% because their budget is disastrous, start at 1%. But people need to learn to save first and then live off the difference. But they do it the exact opposite. And then that causes them to be in a trap of more month than money. So what a great message. I really appreciate that. Doing it 1%, pay yourself, and then after 3 months, add another percent. So simple, but yet so many people will still not even accomplish 1%, right? $1 out of 100, like you said. Who's going to miss that? But I tell people as well to do the bank account situation. So, set it up where you can automatically transfers from your primary account into a sub account, and name that sub account. And if you're a type of person that can't keep your fingers out of the cookie jar and going into that sub account, then set it up from another financial institute. My daughter, I taught her that, and I think she was in high school. And one day I was talking to her, and I said to her, well, how are things going? She says, oh, I'm going to run over to the other bank. I said, why? She says, because I got another account set up there, and it transfers from my primary bank that you helped me set up when I was younger, when I got my first job. and it transfers over to this other bank, but I set it up so that I can't access that money from a debit bank card. I can't access it online. I have to physically go there to take out the money if I need it or utilizing it for something. And I was so proud. Right? She was the only kid. Other kids may have done that at my 5, but she was the only one that ever shared that with me. So thank you for the message. This has been amazing. So our time is up, but I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end this, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way to reach Rocky?
Email probably. So they can send an email, rocky@richersoul.com. That's probably the best. And if you want to listen to the podcast, it's Rich Your Soul. Whatever you're listening to this on, you should be able to find it. And if you're a business owner, the podcast is Profit Answer Man. And that one's more designed for the business owner and helping them implement the profit first systems.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that that information is put into the show notes. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Rocky. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experience so that others can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.